The Latino community is an incredibly diverse community.
Yeah. What's going on, everybody? We're live. That was my James Hetfield impression, Ben. You know him, right?
Yeah, great wrestler. Right?
No.
Oh, no?
Singer of Metallica.
Oh.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
That James Hetfield.
James, yeah. All right, how's it going, everybody?
Yeah. Why did you say so? Okay. My favorite Metallica song, hands down.
Let's hear it. What is it?
Crystal Blue Persuasion. Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Isn't that Metallica?
Whoever likes metal that listens to our show is just raging right now. Crystal Blue Persuasion, Metallica. All right, we do have a song of the day. You may know it. It's kind of out of your range, possibly. We'll see.
Is it 80s?
I don't know, maybe late 70s, 80s. I don't know. Now all of our late 70s, 80s music fans are getting pissed. Okay, let's just keep everyone on board here.
Okay.
Your Ben Joravsky show for Friday, August 7th is just moments away. But before we do this, we got to thank the following unions for sponsoring this podcast. Unions like the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9.
That's correct.
The International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150.
That's correct.
And our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone, make sure the kids hear words.
Live stream chat. What's happening? Jim, Pat, Rod, and Brianna. If you're listening live, feel free to weigh in with your comments. If you have a political question, a political comment, we'd love to hear it. If you want to, throw a little jab at our host real quick, that's fine. We appreciate that as well. We do that kind of stuff here on the program. All right, Ben, your song of the day comes from The Police. Are you familiar with The Police?
Yeah.
The song is
there's a whole
titled?
issue about defunding them.
Okay, well, this song is
Bad
titled
joke, sorry.
by the Police. The song is titled Roxanne.
Oh, I know Roxanne.
Yes.
Roxanne, you don't need to put on a red light. Eddie Murphy sang it. Wasn't that a song that Eddie Murphy sang in one of his movies? That's how I know it. Roxanne, yeah, red light. Now I'm just like, you know how rock stars back then would trash the Who would trash their instruments. That's what I'm doing. Roxanne, I just smashed my guitar.
The Who?
Another
bad joke.
Yeah, I know. Come on, man. You're better than that.
The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. It is Friday, August 7th, and live from my apartment and Ben's attic, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, Ben will probably talk TIFs again. And it's another Rummana Rundown with Chicago Sun-Times editor, Rummana Hussain. And now your host. Don't stand too close to him. Or so close to him. Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Yeah, hello everybody, Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Lucky Biden Friday. And here's why. The luckiest man in politics today, Joe Biden, of course. The second luckiest man in politics today, Donald John Trump. Before all is said and done, they may flip places. Let me take it point by point. Why is Joe Biden so lucky, you ask? The answer, because his opponent is Donald Trump. Donald Trump just may be the most reviled man in America, at least by half of the voters, 50% of the voters. If half the voters in the electorate despise you, you're not going to win under normal circumstances. But these are not normal circumstances. We'll get to that later. Thus, Joe Biden can just sit in his basement all day and say nothing and still win the election. Just let Trump self-destruct. That's all Joe Biden has to do. The problem is that every now and then, Joe Biden feels compelled to emerge from his basement just to remind people that he exists. And that's a problem. Because once Joe Biden starts talking, you never know what he's going to say. And here I will do my Dave Glowatz imitation. Dennis.
I'm impressed already.
Wait, should I do Dave Glowatz when he comes on to talk city council? Jamie from Joe Rogan. Which one would you prefer?
Well, you set it up as Dave Glowatz, so let's roll with that.
Dennis, play Biden cognitive test.
Mr. Vice President, your opponent in this election, President Trump, has made your mental state a campaign topic. And when asked in June if you'd been tested for cognitive decline, you've responded that you're constantly tested in effect because you're in situations like this on the campaign trail. But please clarify specifically, have you taken a cognitive test?
No, I haven't taken the test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not. What do you think, huh? Are you a junkie?
What do you say to President Trump, who brags about his test and makes your mental state an issue for voters?
Well, if he can't figure out the difference between an elephant and a lion, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Did you watch that? Look, come on, man. I know you're trying to goad me, but I mean, I'm so forward looking to have an opportunity to sit with the president or stand with the president in debates. There's going to be plenty of time. And by the way, as I joke with him, I shouldn't say it. I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say. Anyway, I am very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental as well as my mental fitness, and to make a judgment about who I am.
All right, that's Joe Biden more or less coherent. The thing about the man just cracks me up every time I say it, because I say man. I think it's a generational thing. Come on, man. But I'm not running for president. I'm just a guy in an attic. Come on, man.
Well, he's a guy in a basement.
That's the whole point. Stay in the basement. Come on, man. Okay, he's got my vote, D, already. All right. That's just one example of Joe Biden sort of slipping and sliding when he starts talking. Don't know what's going to come out. And at least he policed himself there. He realized he was about to say something he shouldn't say, or maybe he realized he didn't know what he was going to say and didn't want to start a sentence he didn't know how to finish. I don't know what was going on there, but at least he stopped, pulled up, and he's, good decision, Joe Biden. All right, Dennis. Dennis, play Biden, Black and Hispanic.
Is Mr. Bike in there with you? Is that Dave Cloats? What's up, Dave?
What you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things. You go to Florida, you find a very different attitude about immigration in certain places than you do when you're in Arizona. So it's a very different, a very diverse community.
All right. Whenever Joe starts talking about black voters, that's the group of voters in the Democratic primary that he owes his nomination to are by and large black voters. But he has a way of just like insulting the black electorate every time he opens his mouth. This is the second time. Just don't talk about race ever. Don't say anything about it at all. Right, Joe? I pretty much believe that Joe should just stick to the basement. Just stay in the basement. Don't say anything. And at this point, I must say,
what a candidate.
Hey, D, vote blue no matter who. Now shut up and go vote Democrat. All right, now, look, here's the deal. One more time, for the record, Joe Biden was not the candidate I endorsed that I wanted to win the Democratic primary. I have to make that clear. My first choice, as everybody knows who listens to the show, was Bernie Sanders. My second choice, as everybody knows who listens to the show, was Elizabeth Warren. I think there were like 3 other people before I got to Joe Biden. There may have been 4 or 5. I don't know. I can't remember anymore.
Oh, you're so wishy-washy. One week it was Joe Biden was low. The next thing, you know what, man? I like Joe Biden. Then you'd go, man, Elizabeth Warren. Then you were back on Joe Biden.
Remember when Cory Booker had his moment?
Who?
This is after Cory Booker, after he dropped out of the race. Remember, D, I kind of like Cory Booker since he dropped out of the race. Well, shout out to Leah. She was for Cory Booker long before it was fashionable. Anyway, so as you can tell, Joe Biden was not my first choice. Once again, I live in lefty land, far outside the boundaries of most other Democrats. And so, I was hoping for a candidate who could be forceful and passionate about what he or she believed in, generally progressive values and very specific programs, had a strong, it could articulate a certain vision that he or she wanted to take the country. But, my candidates lost.
Oh, then remember there was the time you were into Andrew Yang because he didn't wear a tie?
I like Andrew. I still kind of like Andrew Yang, all right? Would I take Andrew Yang over Joe Biden? Yes, okay? All right, but Andrew Yang, I don't know if he survived New Hampshire. I think he made it to New Hampshire and quit after that. Anyway, point is I lost. So now, yes, I will vote for Joe Biden. That's how much I dislike Donald Trump and his reign. I would probably vote for absolutely any one of those Democrats who was on the stage debating last summer. So, yes, that's who I am. That's where I come from. But, it doesn't mean I have to appreciate Joe Biden. It doesn't mean I have to, wave the flag for Joe Biden, overlook every time he stumbles and every time he says something really bad, like, oh, Dennis, play
the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone. Make sure the kids hear words.
Ugh.
I know we play that a lot, folks, but that just kind of sums it all up. Anyway, like I said, it doesn't really matter. Joe Biden will emerge from his basement, say something ridiculous, cause a lot of attention, apologize on Twitter, and then he'll go back into his basement. And by the time he has gone back to this basement, everyone will have forgotten the dumb thing Joe Biden says, because Donald Trump will have said, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 really revolting, offensive things, like Dennis played Trump on John Lewis.
He didn't come to my inauguration. He didn't come to my State of the Union speeches. And that's okay. That's his right. Again, nobody has done more for black Americans than I have.
I understand.
He should have come. I think he made a big mistake.
But taking your relationship with him out of it, do you find his story impressive, what he's done for this country?
He was a person that devoted a lot of energy and a lot of heart to civil rights. But there were many others also.
Nobody has done more for black Americans than I have. That's Donald Trump talking there, folks. So that's why I'm saying Joe Biden can stay in the basement from now until November and still, in my humble opinion, get a majority or at least a plurality.
Biden!
Of voters. And that brings me to why Donald Trump is so lucky. As we all know, winning a majority doesn't mean you win the election. We have that insane electoral college. I know I talk about it all the time. It's a source of great disappointment to me that the Democrats have not made this an issue since it's now twice in the last 20 years they've lost the White House because of the Electoral College. There's an excellent op-ed piece, which I'll be talking about a lot in the weeks coming in today's New York Times by a political scientist named Alexander Keesar. How has the Electoral College survived? Keesar goes through the history of the Electoral College and basically points out what I've said all along too, what everybody knows. It was devised by slave owners to give the South the dominance over the North in Congress, in the White House, so that they continue slavery. It was a system set up to preserve slavery. Why we still cling to it in the year 2020, I do not know, mainly because it benefits the Republicans. So they have no reason to change it. And the Democrats are too unfocused, or too scared, or they don't look far enough. But whatever, they're not challenging it. So that's why Trump is the luckiest man. He's got a lock on well over half the Electoral College votes, no matter what he says, no matter what he does, no matter who he insults or offends. To win, Joe Biden is going to have to beat Trump in a handful of states like Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Maine and Florida and North Carolina and Georgia and Nevada. And I suspect that Donald Trump is a lot more popular in those states than the polls are showing. I suspect that Dennis's theory is absolutely true, which he has been articulating for well over a year, and that is when it comes to Donald Trump, many white voters lie. They're too embarrassed to admit they're going to vote for him, and so they say they're not. And that's why this election is really close, even though I believe there is no way, no matter what stupid things Joe Biden says, no matter how much he trips over his tongue, there is no way Donald Trump's going to get a majority of votes. But he still could be elected president of the United States. And that's why I say he may be the luckiest man in America, and we may be the unlucky ones. We got a great show today, everybody. Rummana Hussain will be here. We got plenty of Biden talk with Rummana. She's all fired up to talk about that. Also, Bill Clinton. She's going to weigh in on my Bill Clinton column, that I wrote for the Reader this year. Where
Cut the cord.
Tired. Cut the cord, Debs, on Bill Clinton. I went off on who was I talking to yesterday? Oh my goodness. Leonard Goodman. We had a great conversation yesterday. We were talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and of course, Bill Clinton came up, and I went on my one of my tangents about Bill Clinton. That will drop tomorrow, correct, Dave? The Leonard Goodman interview that we did?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Very good. So anyway, Rummana Hussain will be at the show in a little while, but before we do that, the young man from Alton, man they call the doctor, with the news.
Hey guys, what's going on? I got to say, this comment way worse than that Trump John Lewis.
What you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community.
Guys, that's bad.
Incredibly different attitudes about different things. You go to Florida, you find a very different attitude about immigration in certain places than you do when you're in Arizona. So it's a very different, a very diverse community.
Yeah, that's not good, Ben.
Not good, man. Yeah, not good. Not good, Joe. Joe, just don't talk. Go back to the basement. Don't talk, okay? Unlike, why do you feel compelled to even bring in the African? You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about the Hispanic community, okay? Why are you even bringing in black people? Why didn't he say? Could you imagine him in a million? Unlike the white community, you know, why are you bringing in black people? What do they got to do with anything? I'm just, in this particular moment, in this context, you know? Like, you know what I'm saying, D?
Yeah.
Why need to talk about people from Southern Illinois? Unlike people from Southern Illinois, unlike people from Alton, unlike graduates of Evanston Township High School, you know what I mean? But no, right? Let's go just defend your base, okay?
In fact, I got a new theory. I think people are going to be embarrassed just the same as 2016 on the left to vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah, but I think they'll admit it. That's the difference between here I am analyzing your theories. These are your freaking theories. I give you credit for it because your Trump theory is absolutely right on. And you know, it's funny how so many people will agree with it off mic, but they won't say it on the mic. I don't think so. The polls show, but off mic to go, I think the kid may be onto something. The difference is that most lefties I know, and I know a ton of lefties, will moan and groan about voting for Joe Biden, but will say, I'm voting for him because I despise Trump. Whereas your theory is, they'll say, oh, I'm really offended by Donald Trump. I am going to vote for Joe Biden. And then once they're in the polling booth or their kitchen table, I guess they'll be doing it by mail this time, they vote for Trump. So I am now annotating the Dr. D theory of voting. Should write a whole book, D.
Never. All right. Before we find out what's happening in Chicago and/or Illinois this afternoon, we need to shamelessly plug this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews and remind all of you to download them. Yes, every Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, a brand new one-on-one Ben Joravsky interview for all of you to download. Ben just mentioned our Saturday interview. Attorney Leonard Goodman returned to talk all things Jeffrey Epstein. Ben, give everybody a little preview again here of what you guys talked about.
Well, Leonard Goodman, of course, he's a criminal defense lawyer. He was Blagojevich's criminal defense lawyer. He's a leftist. He writes for The Reader, my beloved Reader. And he wrote an essay about 2 weeks ago about the latest twist and turn in Jeffrey Epstein's legal saga with Maxwell being incarcerated. And so we just took the opportunity to go back through the history of Jeffrey Epstein, and Leonard lays out his theory. He may even be more cynical than I am, if such a thing is possible, that his theory, it's a theory, that Jeffrey Epstein is in fact an operative for U.S. intelligence. And so as a result, there's no way, absolutely no way, the feds will allow this case to go to trial because there's too many secrets that can be revealed. And so they're either going to have a plea bargain, a plea deal with Maxwell, or I don't know. He has a bunch of other theories. So a deep dive into who Jeffrey Epstein was, who he was working with, and what it means for the upcoming trial. And then, of course, we had a discussion about Clinton's connection to Epstein and Trump's connection to Epstein. And that's where I went off on Bill Clinton. So it was a lot of fun talking to Leonard's more, if such a thing is possible. Leonard's to the left of me. How about that, D? Leonard is to the left of me. You know, we bring on people left of me. Sam Holloway, my dear friend, got to bring him back. Green Party guy is to the left of me. But most people are more to the center. if they disagree with me in this show.
All right. Once again, attorney Leonard Goodman. It's going to be available tomorrow morning by 5 a.m. On to our Sunday Benny J bonus interview that you can download at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. Another return. Joshua Smizer De Leon, the host of the Paseo podcast. Ben Joravsky, what'd you guys talk about?
Well, actually, it's very timely because in light of Joe Biden's comments about the Hispanic community, Joshua Smizer De Leon and we talked a lot about the different voting constituencies in the Latinx community and the different appeals that politicians make to try to win them over, the Puerto Rican community, the Cuban community, the Mexican-American community. We talk a lot about the Goya boycott and how Donald Trump is trying to use the Goya boycott that many leftists are following as a way to rally support for himself. And so, it's kind of, we didn't realize this when we sat down to do the interview, but it connects to what Joe Biden said yesterday.
All right. And that's Sunday, once again, available by 5 a.m. And finally on Monday, Ben's former sidekick, First Tuesday co-host Mick Dumke of ProPublica returns. He just put something out recently. Ben, tell everybody about that.
Yeah, Mick Dumke, probably more than any other journalist in Chicago, I'd say for the last 20 years, has consistently looked at criminal justice issues. I shouldn't say more than any, but as much as any other journalist, because there's a lot of outstanding journalists. Anyway, consistently looked at criminal justice matters, policing in particular, and, the tactics that Chicago police employ to try to bring down crime, the tactics that Chicago mayors endorse, the tactics that by and large Republican presidents and attorney generals encourage. Mick takes a deep dive on the whole issue of being tough and law and order type and what impact, if any, that has on crime in Chicago. He's been studying this for many years, and as you might suspect, it really hasn't helped reduce crime in Chicago. Then, of course, got Mick Dumke and myself. Quick tangent. We closed the show down with a deep dive into local politics, and we gave him a quiz. Remember that, Dave?
Yes, I do.
Won't reveal the quiz or how he did.
All right. So those are our Benny J bonus interviews. Leonard Goodman, Joshua Smizer De Leon, and Mick Dumke, available at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. Download only, live streamers and YouTube watchers. Go download them and help out the program. So there's that. Let's see here. One more thing. Ben, we received a voicemail. Say what? It's true. We did. Someone called our phone number. Yes, all that hawking of the phone number is paying off, bud. Let's see here. It's from a gentleman who has become a good friend of the program in the last few months. It's our Ben Joravsky Show music producer. That's right, Michael Girardi. You know Michael Girardi, the composer of such hits as The Editorial Board, Tax Increment Financing, very Ben Joravsky Show specific songs here. A New Low and so many others. Michael Girardi, like I said, left us a voicemail. Now, Ben, I listened to it. He's kind of giving you a hard time, but remember, he made all those songs for us. So please just be nice, okay?
I will say nothing but nice things, no matter what he says.
All right, let's hear Michael Girardi.
By the way, I have not heard this at all. This is totally without a net. Go.
Here we go.
Hey, guys, it's Mike Girardi. So I was thinking, Ben talks about how Mike Royko is his hero. And he says that Royko did this thing where he would talk to readers and he would say, "You idiots, all of this is all your fault. You accept all this corruption. You vote for these same people. And you have nobody to blame but yourselves. And I hate you." So also, Ben does this thing where he talks about Chicago voters. And I realized, I think that Ben is doing the same thing that Royko did to us. So I'm convinced that one of these days, Ben is going to start the show like this, and it's going to be a Tuesday. He's going to say, "Hello, everybody. It's Ben Joravsky here, and we're calling this Chicago voters are stupid idiots, and I hate you. Every single one of you, and that includes all of you, my listeners, because you're all stupid and you don't know how to vote and you're all idiots and I hate you. Tuesday. And here's why. Great weekend, D. You have a good weekend? And you're going to be like, hubbada. No.
Oh my goodness,
Maybe I'm wrong.
that's funny.
Hope I'm wrong. Take care. Love the show.
God, that's hilarious.
Now remember, he made all of those songs for us, okay?
Oh Lord, you know what? He's right on. First of all, it's a great parody. I got to give him a lot of credit. Yeah, man. To quote Joe Biden, man, Michael, what can I say? I struggle with this. Okay, maybe I'm going to use you as my therapist. All right, Michael. I struggle with this. I've been at this game for 40 years. I was just talking to my wife about this. I've been writing columns for the Reader and writing columns for the Reader since about the mid 80s, so not exactly 40. Anyway, the point is, a long time. And sometimes, Michael, I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall. So there's two ways of looking at it. I could say, you know what? I'm not an effective writer. I'm not doing a good job. I'm not communicating. Or I can go the other route and blame you, the voters. You bleeping morons. You freaking idiots.
Please keep downloading our show.
Thanks for downloading them. But you're right. You're right. Michael, I can't argue with you. You're right. I got this thing about Chicagoans. I don't understand Chicagoans. I struggle with it every day. I wake up. Like, can I just share this with you? You know, I got to share this with you, Michael. This is my struggle with Chicagoans. So yesterday, the city, a couple of days ago, Lori Lightfoot announced the schools she was going to close the schools down. And immediately, a lot of Chicagoans, particularly from the mainstream quarters, were denouncing the teachers union. You know, and they were outraged that kids would be going without school. And they were saying, like, poor kids cannot afford to miss a day of school because they'll slide further and further behind their wealthier peers. And I completely agree with that point. Absolutely. But I'm like, why do they only raise that point when they want to use it against the teachers for taking whatever stand they're taking, for the teachers union? Like, so when the teachers want to strike because they wanted more nurses, the kids are going to miss school. You can't miss school. Nurses aren't that important. And when the teachers say, we don't want to go back to work under these conditions, it's like the kids are going to miss school. They're going to fall further behind. I got news for you guys. This condition of inequity in the city of Chicago, it exists during a pandemic, before a pandemic, after a pandemic. If you want to eradicate the inequities that exist so that poor kids don't compete like wealthier kids, you can do it anytime. You don't need to advocate it just when you want to punish teachers for taking a stand about protecting themselves. So, Michael, see, when I deal with that, how am I supposed to deal with that? Like, you got this TIF program. It's supposed to help the poorest of the poor, but it helps the richest of the rich, and it takes money from the schools to do that. How am I supposed to deal? Everybody goes, we want to deal with the inequities. We must deal with these inequities. The kids are falling further and further behind. Okay. I keep pointing out to you where the money is. I keep pointing out to you that you're spending all the money in wealthy neighborhoods as opposed to poor neighborhoods. I keep pointing out to you you're taking money from the schools to do it. But they, just don't pay attention. So I don't know what I'm going to do, Michael. So I have two choices as I see it. One, blame myself for not being a more forceful, articulate advocate for the causes I believe in, or two, blame everyone else for being stupid. I'm going with option B. You bleeping moron.
Thank you for watching the language. Live stream chat. Who had 30 minutes? 30 minutes until Ben started talking about TIFs. Anybody?
Oh, man. I'm just warming up, D.
All right.
I have to tell you, D.
What?
Tommy Tresser as long as we're teasing about interviews, Mr. Tiff will be, I'll be interviewing Tommy today at about, 5 o'clock or so. And that'll drop next week. So just more Tiff talk in the Ben Joravsky Show.
Oh, I think I know Michael Girardi's next voicemail. He's on the live stream chat right now, and he says, "Are Chicagoans really just white Northsiders?" Call us up, Michael, again. And you can call us up as well, 708-658-4788. That number again, 708-658-4788. Leave a voicemail to the Ben Joravsky Show, and we will play it. Shout out to Mike Girardi. You're the man. All right, let's find out what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois this afternoon. And today, we begin with the governor. Today, our Illinois governor gave an early morning COVID-19 press briefing. With the continued spread of the coronavirus in Illinois, it seems as though that we have strayed away from Governor Pritzker's initial 5-phase strategy to safely reopen Illinois.
Let's begin with phase 1.
Quit playing, JB. We're not going back to phase 1, dude. I believe we were in the beginning of stages of phase 4. Now we can say we're in, 3.5. But, after what Pritzker announced at this morning's press briefings, we may end up back to phase 1 before we know it. With the downstate towns and counties now seeing more positive test results than Chicago, the governor announced this morning that the Illinois Department of Public Health will begin to file emergency rules for businesses, schools, and child care establishments regarding the use of masks.
Face coverings.
Okay, or face coverings. Sorry, JB. And the size of gatherings. The following comes from, the meanest Illinois political bulldog in the yard, Capital Facts' own Rich Miller. Seriously, guys, if you're looking for a good source of statewide news, Capital Facts, F-A-X, like a fax machine. Go check it out. Rich Miller's the man. The governor has also signed SB 471 to help protect workers who continue to serve on the front lines of the fight against COVID-19. Here's the quote from the governor. Pritzker this morning said, quote, "As I've visited with and listened to mayors and health departments all across our state, it's clear there is still an even greater need to get people to wear masks, especially to protect frontline workers. Whether they're at the front of a store asking you to put on your mask or whether they're responding to 911 calls to save those in distress. These rules, which provide multiple opportunities for compliance before any penalty is issued, are a common-sense way to enforce public health guidelines. Illinois has made substantial progress in our fight against COVID-19 because the vast majority of communities and business owners have done the right thing. These rules will help ensure that the minority of people who refuse to act responsibly won't take our state backward." Pritzker then threw it to his right-hand woe man, Illinois Department of Health Director Dr. Ezike. Dr. Ezike said, quote, "We know that face coverings are key to helping prevent the spread of COVID-19, but it only works if everyone wears them." Said, this is from Ezike. She continued saying, "We are seeing cases increasing each day and hearing about people not complying with the masking mandate. This rule is an effort to help keep all of us healthy and decrease the risk of contracting COVID-19. So let's cover the new COVID-19 emergency rules. And listeners, if you listen closely, you can hear hundreds of downstaters putting up their Pritzker sucks yard signs in their yard. Once again, these are emergency rules for businesses, schools, and child care establishments regarding the use of face coverings and the size of gatherings. These rules provide multiple opportunities for compliance before any penalty is issued, giving local health departments and local law enforcement more leeway to support community public health in a productive manner. While existing pre-pandemic enforcement laws like revoking a license are stringent and severe, these rules provide flexibility for local communities and a measured process to help keep people safe. That process is as follows. First, businesses will be given a warning in the form of written notice and encouraged to voluntarily comply with public health guidance. That's first. Second, all right, the gloves are starting to come off slowly here. Businesses that do not voluntarily comply will be given an order to have some or all their patrons leave the premises as needed to comply with public health guidance and reduce risks. Third, the gloves are completely off. If the business continues to refuse to comply, the business can receive a Class A misdemeanor and be subject to a fine ranging from $75 to $2,500. We called this. We called this a few days ago, Ben. These rules do not apply to individuals, and penalties will not exceed a misdemeanor and a $75 to $2,500 fine. The emergency rules also reinforce the authority of the Illinois Department of Health and local health departments to investigate COVID-19 cases and reaffirm that businesses have a responsibility to cooperate with those investigations. Ben Joravsky, your thoughts?
Well, you summed it up, D. The signs are coming out on the southern Illinois. They're already cluttering all the lawns in Alton, Illinois right now. Pritzker sucks. Listen, $2,500 fine. D, just imagine if they try to enforce this in areas that are not already abiding by it. You talked about when you went down to visit your family in Alton a couple of weeks ago, how you went into a gas station and one day people were wearing masks and the next day they weren't wearing masks. Just imagine if the state sent in agents to ticket people. I don't even know if local police would enforce it. You know, we've seen the situations throughout the country where local police have said they're not going to enforce mandates about wearing masks. Our country right now, we're at a point, D, I don't believe there's any way that we are going to successfully get out from this pandemic until we have a vaccine. I just don't see it happening. I see it alive in the debate, whether you open schools or don't open schools. I see it like the inconsistencies in Chicago where, you know, the restaurants on the beach are open, but the beaches are closed. There's inconsistency. There's mixed message. There's people have politicized the issue. I just feel as though if the state sends in troopers or ticket writers, I don't know who would be the one to write the ticket. There would be a bit of an uprising. Well, there's already an uprising. Darren Bailey is leading it. The Republican Party that has positioned itself as a party that's against masks, at least in southern Illinois. So, D, I think this is going to work against J.B. Pritzker. And look, I know he's frustrated. He's trying to look out for the best interests of the state. I understand that. But the reality is, this will be viewed as too much a power grab by J.B. Pritzker. This will be viewed as the state stepping in and taking away people's liberty. Wasn't it just yesterday that we were talking about how Darren Bailey and the judge McHaney in Clay County were talking about want to put Pritzker in jail? That's where we're at, people. Darren Bailey and Judge McHaney want to put Pritzker in jail for overextending his authority. They call him a tyrant. Pritzker's responded by saying, I'm going to fine people, businesses who don't enforce the mask wearing rule. I just feel like we're inflaming already a raw subject here in the state of Illinois. And listen, I'm very sympathetic to Pritzker trying to protect the state, but I just don't think this will work, D. I don't think people downstate, even with the threat of the fine, will start voluntarily putting the masks on. I don't know what it's going to take to get people to put the masks on. You get the governor of Oklahoma. He had COVID. Even then, he said, I'm not going to wear a mask. I don't believe in masks. So, you know, there's a defiance that defies all logic. Just a response to Herman Cain's death is bizarre. We were talking about this last week. You know, Herman Cain died, and he was defiant. He was just like all the other Republicans. He wasn't going to wear a mask. He showed up in Tulsa for Donald Trump's rally. He was pictured with several of his friends, no masks. A couple of weeks later, it comes out that he has the virus. And then last week he died. And the response to Republicans is, you can't blame that on Trump. You can't blame that on that rally. You can't turn this into a political issue. So instead of like, you know, being angry at the officials who allow people to walk around without masks in arenas, they're mad at Democrats who are pointing out how Herman Cain's death reveals, you know, how poor of a job the Republican Party has done to protecting people. So, D, like I said, vaccination is about the only thing I think that can save our country when it comes to the pandemic.
Well, I know we were talking before the show, and you were mentioning how, you know, people, you know, who don't wear their seatbelts, although there's a fine, and people who don't wear helmets, although there's a fine.
Neil Steinberg, got to give him credit. Yes. Thank you, D, for reminding me of that. Neil Steinberg wrote a really good column in today's Sun-Times. Men have long shunned protective gear. And he talks about the aversion that men have to helmets and seatbelts, et cetera. And D, I see this all the time. Like, so men won't wear bike helmets. Remember when Fox was criticizing Barack Obama because he wore a helmet? It was like 2014 when he was president. They said he was unmanly. I used to have friends, and I will not name their names because I love them dearly. They wouldn't put their seatbelt on. I'm like, hey, man, could you put the seatbelt on? The cars, man, I hate this sound, this buzzing sound. And they go, well, it'll go off eventually. I go, why don't you put the seat? Bleep it. Notice how I don't swear, D?
Thank you.
Bleep it.
Thank you.
We don't need, come on, man. Nothing's going to happen. I go, well, if it does, your head's going through that window, so please put the seatbelt on. I don't know what it is. It's like this macho thing. So like a mask. It makes him feel unmanly. I don't know. Crazy stuff. Good column by Neil Steinberg pointing out how illogical people can be.
I think it's 3 words. Damn the man, right?
Yeah, man. How do you feel about bicycle helmets?
When I go downtown, I make sure to wear a helmet. When I'm, you know, kind of cruising around on safe trails, I take it off. I'm being honest, guys. Whoa.
Yeah, I know you're being honest. Yeah. You're being honest, but kind of proving my point. Anyway, this is you know what, Deep, but who am I to talk? I can't stand the freaking masks. When I'm walking down the street, no one's around, I don't have a mask on, but I always have that mask in my hand, ladies and gentlemen. Put it over whenever I see anybody. I'm that weird guy with the mask in his hand.
Oh, you can take with the mask in his hand out of that. You're just a weird guy. All right, and shout out.
Can we give some love to Girardi for a pretty good parody? I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, parody of you. His impression of me sucked. All right, I'm just gonna say it right now. Habita. Come on.
You have a good weekend, D.
All right, shout out to Radio Doogie. He has a little theory here. He says everybody's gonna move to Indiana or Wisconsin.
You mean everybody from Southern Illinois? Okay, well that's the Republicans' attitude right there. That all these rules, all these taxes, people are going to move to Wisconsin and Indiana.
He says he sees a lot of homes for sale.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We shall see. If that's what's going to push people out of the state, Governor Pritzker trying to force them to wear a mask, well, the place to go is Indiana. I don't think they have mask rules in the state of Indiana. Do they, D? I'm not quite sure. We remember had that discussion a while ago. I'll have to look into that.
All right, so that is the statewide news. Let's talk the news of the day in the city of Chicago.
We've said it's time to bring in the light, and it's sure shining on all of us tonight. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Today, Mayor Lakefront was at the Oak Park Regional Housing Center at 11 a.m. to unveil a rental assistance program for suburban Cook County residents experiencing financial insecurity due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm going to try to find details on that plan, and we'll try to discuss that before we head out for the day. In the meantime, Ben, it's your lucky day. More media outlets are talking about tax increment financing, aka TIFs. And as we all know, our host can talk literally for hours about this. And Ben, I actually have a few things to do. I have a few emails to send out.
Okay.
So while I do that, Ben, you dive in on that very unhealthy habit of yours. I'll stop you after about 5 minutes. All right, go.
Oh, well, I don't know if I have 5 minutes of discourse on TIFs. I've already discussed them already today. I talked about them yesterday.
Well, there went that pre-show planning.
I will probably write a column about them next week. As everybody knows, this has been a passion of mine for a long, long time. The TIF program is intended to help the poorest neighborhoods spark development that would not otherwise happen without a subsidy from the government. That's the intention of the program, because the program is flawed. Every neighborhood in the city, pretty much every neighborhood in the state is eligible for a TIF. I think, what was Kenilworth? North Suburban Kenilworth was going to have a TIF district, and North Suburban Kenilworth is one of the wealthiest towns in America. So there's no oversight to this program in terms of making sure that it is helping the poorest of the poor. In fact, the gaping loopholes make sure that the wealthiest neighborhoods will be the biggest benefactors, because there's a flaw in the way the program is set up. And I'm always a little hesitant, Dee, to explain what the flaw is, because there you go into the deep dive of TIFs. And there is perhaps the program's greatest strength, because it's a complicated program, because it's convoluted in terms of how it works. Once you start describing how the program works, everybody turns off. People stop listening. They don't want to know. It's complicated. It's convoluted. And also it has to deal with property taxes. And this is something else we've talked about a lot. Renters don't pay property taxes. The property taxes are obviously added to their rents. They pay a higher rent if property taxes go up, but they don't see it. I've talked about TIFs to groups throughout the city, and I usually ask a question when I start off: who here owns property? And maybe, I don't know, a quarter of the audience, people will raise their hand, the rest don't own property, they're renters. Who here then has ever seen a property tax bill? And those renters' hands never go up. So if you don't pay a property tax, you don't realize the impact that TIFs have on the amount you pay in rent. I'll go one step further. If you do pay a property tax, more often than not, you don't realize the impact TIFs have, because they're not itemized on the property tax bill. So it is a program, because of the flaws, because of the lack of transparency, that's perfectly set up for a city like Chicago, where you have a powerful mayor whose control is perpetrated by not having any oversight. So millions and millions of dollars flow into bank accounts that the mayor largely controls. She's free to spend them as she wants. It's a slush fund. It's been a slush fund since the 90s, when Mayor Daley figured out how to take advantage of the loopholes to have more money flow into it. So he has more power, more control over, who gets what and where to subsidize which projects. And so as a good government type journalist, I seized on TIFs way back when, 20 years ago, started writing stories about them. And then I got into the inequities of the program and how they favored the wealthy over the poor, even though they're supposed to help the poor. I talked about how it diverts money from the schools, even though our schools are constantly short of money, diverts money from parks and police, all these things I talked about. And yet, because it's so complicated, and because it's so convoluted, and because it's hidden from so many of the residents, either because they don't pay property taxes, the renters, or because they don't even look at the bill that they get, and it's not even mentioned in the bills, people are ignorant about it. And reporters struggle with it, because it's so complicated, it's so convoluted. It's not part of the regular discourse. It's only a few outsiders like me and Tom Tresser who talk about it. They don't quite know how to deal with it. And so yesterday, the Cook County clerk had a press conference where Karen Yarbo, she revealed how much money the TIFs were going to collect, how much money in property taxes the TIFs in Chicago were going to collect. $926 million, almost $1 billion, $926 million in just 1 year in property taxes. That's how much the TIF bank accounts will collect. And so regular or ordinary reporters who don't cover it every day are not quite sure how to deal with this. So they'll say, well, critics say, that'll be in the article. I'm like, oh, it's me and Tresser. Critics say the program's, a slush fund. Or they'll say this, and this is from the Tribune D, and I circled this one. This kind of just sort of sums it up about how this program, despite the fact that it's generates $926 million in property taxes that the mayor's pretty much free to control, how this program remains in the shadows. Chicago's controversial special property taxing districts. So they don't even mention TIFs in the lead because it's sort of like the assumption is, I guess, that people don't even know what they are. So Chicago's controversial special property taxing districts are expected to bring in a record $926 million this year, accounting for more than a third of the city's haul, according to a report issued Thursday. That enormous sum to be collected at a time of plummeting revenue for the city as it grapples with an economic downturn caused by the pandemic is sure to spur another debate about whether so-called tax increment financing districts are sucking money away from where it's needed most. My part of the sentence that made me just laugh and shake my head: so-called tax increment financing districts. When you say something is so-called, you're suggesting that it doesn't earn the name that it's called. That's what it's called: tax increment finance districts. It's like saying the so-called Ben Joravsky show will be back in a moment. It is the Ben Joravsky show. Anyway, that's just like a minor thing, D. You know what I'm saying? About Michael Girardi, this is what I'm getting at. I've been writing about this thing for 20 years. If I live long enough, God willing, I'll write about it for another 20 years. And it's called a so-called TIF program. No, it's the TIF program. You should know about it. You wouldn't say the so-called property tax. You would say the property tax. It's a very minor point, D. But it's why, going back to what Michael Girardi was making fun of before, sometimes I just want to go, ah! Sorry. Was that 5 minutes, D?
All right, finishing this email here, and okay, sent it. And you thought you couldn't go 5 minutes.
Oh, Lord, I just warm it up, man.
That was like 8 minutes, man.
Tom Tresser will be here at about 5 o'clock. We'll be talking some more about him.
Shout out to Michael Girardi again. He reminded all of us that it was Brianna on the live stream chat who said, yes, I believe Ben Joravsky's tombstone, instead of RIP, will read TIF.
Yeah, man. And everybody go, so-called TIF. It's the so-called TIF program. Like, was that alligator in the lagoon? The so-called alligator in the lagoon.
Or was it in the lagoon? I'm not sure. Hold on. I got a credible source who knows something about this. Hold on a second. Let's ask him. Excuse me, random hipster.
I've seen a whole lot of catfish, some turtles. No gators yet, though.
Okay. All right. No
Why
gators.
are your eyes so red? All right.
I've seen a whole lot of catfish, some turtles. No gators yet, though.
We do have an update on Pritzker going to jail gate, I guess we can call it. Hey, come on, leave the governors going to jail to Balago, for love of God. All right. So here, this following comes from the Illinois Review and Capitol Facts. Governor J.B. Pritzker was ordered to appear before a Clay County judge next Friday at 1 p.m. to explain why he, quote, should not be held in indirect civil contempt. Failure to appear in court may result in warrant for arrest, the order says. State Representative Darren Bailey out of Xenia complained to the Clay County judge that Governor Pritzker is ignoring the court's previous order and is exercising emergency powers concerning the COVID crisis, extending beyond state law's 30-day provision for such powers. So more updates.
Wow. Man, that's a showdown. They're going to put a warrant out for his arrest. Good God. Now we're heading into Trump country. He's going to have to file a lawsuit. It's going to end up in the Supreme Court. Which way will Kavanaugh go on this one? I guess it's the state Supreme Court. But wow, warrant. That's no joke, D. Man, hey, JB, whatever you're doing, stay out of Clay County, all right? They'll throw you in jail so fast.
Oh, and if you want to get a good look at, if you haven't seen what Darren Bailey looks like, Capital Facts has a nice little picture posted of him there. Big fella.
Is he wearing a mask in the picture?
Hell no.
DB doesn't wear. Actually, remember he put the mask on eventually. Remember this one? This gets to the heart of it. When Madigan convened the General Assembly, the House of Representatives. In fact, I think it was in May. I can't remember. I've lost track of time. June, I don't know. Darren Bailey refused to wear a mask, so the Dems voted to kick him out of the hall. Get out of here if you're not going to wear a mask.
I think
proved his point.
I think Durkin was like, "Hey, listen, dude, I'll buy some bacon from one of those damn hogs you talk about all the time. Just put the mask on, please." Oh, all right.
Yeah, Jim Durkin, the Republican leader in the House. He did return the next day. Whether it was Durkin's convincing or not, I don't know what it was, but he was wearing a mask. He said he proved his point.
Frank on the live stream chat says Governor Pritzker should go straight to the Illinois Supreme Court.
Yeah, do not pass go. Let's deal with this one right now. You don't want to be the governor of the state of Illinois and have some outstanding warrant for your arrest. Good God, you never know when some trooper is going to try to haul you into jail. So,
and he says this judge is clearly a right-wing hack.
Who said that, Frank? Or J.B. Pritzker?
Frank.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I mean, J.B. probably said it off mic, but
yeah, off mic, not on mic.
All right, guys, that's the local news. Feel free to reach out to us at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We had a feller, or maybe a lady, I don't know, contact us on Twitter, doing a little trolling, and shout out to our dear friend Pat Whalen. This guy is a master when it comes to social media, all right? This guy went by the name No Name Bot. All right, and I guess David Ferris posted something about his interview with us on the Ben Joravsky Show, and he put David Ferris put thrilled as always to talk politics with Ben Joravsky on the Benny J Show. We talked about the kids are all left, Biden's VP pick, and how close Trump would get the ball to home plate if he tried to do the first pitch. Check it out, podcast and yada yada. He sent a bunch of links. This no-name bot put waste of perfectly good, meaningless, hot air. I'm being kind. And then and David Ferris went on to put, I'm absolutely crushed to receive this feedback from an account with 0 followers that follows 0 people. Pat Whalen, who acts like Ben Joravsky on Twitter, let's be honest. Sorry, dude. We just got to be honest. Pat Whalen put, slow down, Dave. Still working on how hot air can be both good and meaningless.
Good and mean. Yeah, I guess not everybody's going to appreciate what you do. By the way, David Ferris, outstanding guest. Got to bring him back. Probably wait till Joe Biden announces who his running mate will be. We'll be talking about that with Rummana Hussain coming up, who Joe Biden is going to take as his running mate. A couple articles in the Sun Times on the subject today, or essays, I should say, both written by Republicans. Interesting. The Sun Times turned to 2 Republicans to opine about as to who Joe Biden should take. I'll tell you what, Democrats are so open. I can't think of any Republican outlet that would turn to 2 Democrats to ask them who, let's say, Donald Trump should pick as his running mate, or who Mitt Romney should take in 2012. Right. Democrats are very open-minded.
So go check out that back and forth there on Twitter, at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show. You can send us an email, bennyjshow@gmail.com. And like you heard earlier, you can leave us a voicemail like Michael Girardi. One hell of a voicemail, by the way, Mike.
That was a great parody.
708-658-4788. 708-658-4788. Give us a call, leave us a voicemail, and who knows, we may play your voicemail on the program. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, it's another Rummana Rundown with Sun-Times editor Rummana Hussain. Don't go anywhere. It's the Ben Joravsky Show. We are live from my apartment. Very hot in this apartment, and I think the guys are done doing construction outside, so that's good. And Ben's attic.
to my...
Space coverage.
What you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African American community with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Benny J, take it away.
Every Friday, Rummana Hussain from the Chicago Sun-Times joins us, editor, columnist. Used to be just walk down the hall to our lovely little studio in the Sun-Times building, but of course, it's been now 4 or 5 months in our separate apartments or our separate homes. Rummana, welcome back to the show.
Hi, how are you guys?
Doing well and doing very well despite it all. I just finished a riff of monumental proportion. I'm just calming down on TIFs. This is not a subject I want to talk about with you. Usually I talk to Rummana's husband, Mick Dumke, for like hours on TIFs. But I am not going to discuss that with you, Rummana. I'm going to calm down and turn my attention to other matters and leave the TIF discussion to the side. I want to talk national politics with you today. I told you this already, Rummana. Just really struggling with this, and I could use some assistance from you. I, as I've said many times, did not vote for Joe Biden. He wasn't my first choice. I had a lot of issues with him. After it was clear he got the nomination, I really struggled with it. I wrote several columns about it. He wasn't forceful enough. He didn't seem to have a vision where he was going to take the country, not one I even wanted. And when I looked at some of the centrist things he was saying about health care, I was uncomfortable with it. It seemed like it was that old, same moderate centrist stuff. And then I came to the conclusion that it would be probably advantageous to the Democrats if he just stayed in his basement and didn't say anything. And so in a bizarre way, he was the strongest candidate that Democrats had. This led Trump to self-destruct. And then in this last couple of weeks, he's emerged a couple times, said some absolutely whacked out things. And it just gets it going again. So where do you stand on all of this, Rummana, when you think about Joe Biden as a candidate?
Well, I personally can't say what I feel, obviously, or I can't really talk about who I voted for, but I can tell you that I do have a lot of friends who Joe Biden wasn't the first choice. Um, so you can see where I'm going here. I mean, I don't think anybody thinks that he's not qualified. I think there's a lot of questions as to whether, like you mentioned, is he forceful enough? And I know you said that him staying quiet in his, quote unquote basement. I mean, that's what everybody's saying, he's in his basement. And honestly, like, given his age, I don't blame him from kind of staying away from the spotlight. But I also think that being quiet isn't necessarily the answer right now. I'm not saying he has to talk every day, but I think one thing that I think this pandemic has made us realize is that we do rely on technology, and technology can be used to communicate what you feel. So it's not like he can't get his message out there. And I think a lot of people feel like, he's definitely a choice that a lot of people think is better than Trump, but the candidate shouldn't be just someone, vote for me because I'm not Trump. That's the way I think a lot of people are seeing it as Ed. Like he feels like because Trump can keep making, these crazy comments and keep tweeting, and he can just stay quiet as long as he's the anti-Trump or not Trump. I don't think that's enough. I think I think he needs to be speaking out more. I think that would help his cause. I don't know, when he does open his mouth, he does seem to make a few mistakes. So then I don't know. Maybe his camp is thinking, maybe the more quiet he is, the better it is, or he won't put his foot in his mouth as he did this week.
Well, I'll tell you this. You've made that point many times. It has to be more, in your opinion, than I'm not Trump. But I'm absolutely convinced that's all it takes. And that I believe that the people who chose Joe Biden chose them because he's not Trump. So even when he puts his foot in his mouth, he does it in a different way than when Trump says something really insulting and offensive. So I just think that's probably Joe Biden's strongest point. Go ahead.
I that probably is a strategy that they're working on, but a lot of people said, "Oh, Joe Biden is a safe choice." He's the one that could get all the people who are on the fence or all the people who voted for Trump the first time, because he's kind of seen as this quote unquote safe candidate. And I don't know. I think for a lot of people, especially people of color, I don't think that's enough. I think that, they want someone to vocally say that, no, this is wrong. And not to say that Joe Biden hasn't done any of that stuff. He has, but I just don't think it's done. And I guess, people say that you have to be careful because you don't want to, the people who are kind of iffy, you have to, appease them too, and you can't sound too crass or too angry. But I don't know. I think this is a point in American history, or our elections, where I think you kind of have to be loud and be vocal. And as we're seeing with these, plane coming by, with the with these protests in the wake of George Floyd's death, he was killed at the hands of a police officer, is that you can't stay quiet, and staying quiet isn't necessarily always the right choice. You have to speak out. And maybe there's a discussion about how he needs to speak out, but I think more needs to be said. That's from my point of view. But I know what he's saying. I'm sure his camp is thinking like he can just stay quiet. Donald Trump can do his thing, and that will be enough for everyone.
All right, let's take a listen to what Joe Biden says when he isn't quiet, when he isn't hiding out in his basement. Dee, why don't you, Rummana, hear Joe Biden's thoughts on blacks versus Hispanics?
What you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things. You go to Florida, you find a very different attitude about immigration in certain places than you do when you're in Arizona. So it's a very diverse community.
Unlike the African-American community, I don't know. That's what I'm saying, Rummana. I don't know what he's thinking. Go ahead.
And I agree. And that's what I think a lot of people have issues with, is like they just think that just because someone's not Trump, that they're like perfect, or it shouldn't be. I don't know. I think at this day and age, you shouldn't be those comments. I just don't understand where that's coming from. And I think that was a discussion with the National Association of Hispanic Journalists and NABJ, which is the National Association of Black Journalists. It was a discussion that he had with, I think, reporters from both of those journalism groups. I just don't. I mean, I know. I guess he's saying, is he saying political? Like, because he said there's like certain. What was the word he used? He said that there's certain it seems like he's saying, like, when you listen to the quote, it seems like he's talking about a diversity in thought. That's what I take it as. And I know has since issued apologies saying that that's not what I meant. I meant to say that, there's all these Latinos from different parts of the world, and so they have different experiences. But I think a lot of African Americans will tell you that they all have different experiences too. There might be certain things that, African Americans, and I don't want to speak on behalf of African Americans, but there might be some experiences that they are shared, like, the police being, they probably had many run-ins with the police that weren't very favorable. Those are shared experiences. But to say that, a lot of Black people do, I mean, from what I've hear and what I read and from talking to African American friends, is they're not a monolith, just like any other group.
Yeah.
And so I can see why a lot of people would get offended by that comment.
Yeah, what I don't understand is why he felt compelled to raise the subject of African Americans in the middle of
Latinos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and that's one of the problems I think a lot of people of color have with, white politicians or just white people in general sometimes, is when you're talking about one group of people, one group of people of color, you have to compare them to another people of color. And that is what happened with Asian Americans and being described as the minority. It's just pitting against, minority groups. And I'm sure Joe Biden, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. He's not trying to pit the two groups, but when he makes comments like that, it does inherently cause some sort of friction. Or he's, it's just basically saying, well, they're not like that. They're not like those people. That's what it makes it sound like. So, yeah, I think he could have talked about Latinos without mentioning African Americans. It's kind of like when we were talking about Bill Clinton last week and how he mentioned Mr. Carmichael at John Lewis's funeral. Like, why bring him up even? Like, why do you have to bring that name up? Just talk about John Lewis.
Well, we'll come back to Bill Clinton. That's one of my obsessions of the moment, Bill Clinton, and it's time for the Democrats to cut the cord on him. But he brought up Stokely Carmichael for a very specific reason. He's still fighting these age-old fights from the 70s and 80s with the lefties of the world. And it's almost like he's still running for office and wants to win over swing voters. But yeah, I thought that was such a gratuitous attack on Stokely Carmichael, and that triggered a response in me that it still reverberates of disdain for Bill Clinton. All right, we've heard Joe Biden his stumbling on this issue. Dennis, play Donald Trump on John Lewis.
He didn't come to my inauguration. He didn't come to my State of the Union speeches. And that's okay. That's his right. Again, nobody has done more for Black Americans than I have.
I understand.
He should have come. I think he made a big mistake.
But taking your relationship with him out of it, do you find his story impressive, what he's done for this country?
He was a person that devoted a lot of energy and a lot of heart to civil rights. But there were many others also.
Nobody has done more for Black Americans than I have, Donald Trump. All right, Rummana, we heard Joe Biden. Now we heard Donald Trump. Your thoughts?
I mean, I would think that most, I guess this is one thing most African Americans would agree with and would be pretty much not diverse in thought, is that is a very erroneous statement. Maybe Ben Carson agrees with him, but that's just insane. I guess the difference is with Trump is he's actually centering himself in the African American struggle, and Joe Biden's just talking about two different groups. I mean, they're both definitely things shouldn't be said. But I think there's a difference. I think Joe Biden, I don't know. I think the difference is that Donald Trump is always making it about himself and really does not know what it's like to be a person of color. I think Joe Biden, on the other hand, probably tries, but he's just a clueless boomer. I guess you could say.
He's not even a boomer. You can't blame us. He's 5 years older than me. I mean, 5 years older than the boomer. He's whatever the ones came before boomers. That's what he is.
Oh, I thought he was a boomer. Sorry. I don't know. I just think people think of him as just someone who's kind of out of touch in terms of, the discussions that we're having on, race relations. And, I kind of wonder, like, he does have a lot of younger people working for him. And you wonder if they tell him, and he obviously has had a talking down to, at least Joe Biden put out, I guess the difference is Joe Biden put out an apology. Donald Trump I think Donald Trump does believe that he has done a lot for African Americans in his mind. So he's not going to put out an apology, criticizing John Lewis for not showing up to his inauguration, being all offended and acting like John Lewis really was just one, he is not giving him the credit. He's not giving John Lewis credit. Instead of giving John Lewis credit for all the things that he does, he puts it on himself to talk about all the things that he's done for Black people. And it's just, it's insulting.
Yeah, no, John Lewis's entire existence as an activist, as a politician, as a man who lived for 80 years, his entire existence in Donald Trump's mind boils down to whether he showed up for Donald Trump's inauguration or not. That's Donald Trump's view of the world. And listen, that's why I say that I stand by it. At this stage, the Democrat really isn't Donald Trump. That's the issue. And so you're right. Joe Biden says something ridiculous. Immediately when he's done saying it, his handlers come up to him and say, "What did you just say? You said something ridiculous." He comes out with a statement where he apologizes or clarifies. Donald Trump says something ridiculous, gets everybody upset. His handlers come out with a statement explaining why Donald Trump was correct and why everybody got it wrong. And so they're like even more of enablers than Joe Biden's handlers are, if you see the distinction.
Exactly. And, and nobody's perfect. I think that's one of the things. And, as we're all learning, I think a lot of people have to, aren't always 100%, especially, people who are non-Black, people of color, the white community. It's like we don't understand everything that, African Americans have gone through completely. We have to listen. So at least Joe Biden, it seems like he's trying to listen. I think that's the difference. And he's trying to listen and he's owning up to his mistakes. So, it does take a bigger person to admit that they made a mistake. So at least he has that. It's just that the one thing is I don't think Joe Biden's done making those kind of comments or just making, certain kind of comments that might get him into hot water.
Oh, no. And by the way, there's 3 debates. Lord knows what's going to come out of Joe Biden's mouth in those debates. But you know what? I don't even think it'll matter. He's not Donald Trump is really all that matters in terms of his campaign. All right, let's go to switch gears to Kanye. You had something very interesting to say. We were talking about this before the show. I have been pointing out that Republicans have been leading the effort to get Kanye West on the ballot in crucial states like Wisconsin. It's Republican operatives who are collecting the signatures. It's Republican operatives who are turning them in. It's Republican operatives who are going to fend off the challenges to Kanye West. And the Republicans have made it clear. In their mind, Kanye West can be a contributing factor to reelecting Donald Trump by siphoning off votes from Joe Biden. Just enough votes in a state like Wisconsin or, maybe Pennsylvania or what have you, to give Trump the state and then that electoral total to add to his electoral total. So he's a pivotal player, Kanye West, even though it seems like he's borderline losing his mind to reelect Donald Trump. You had an interesting observation about this. Go into it.
Yeah, and I'm not giving myself credit. I'm just talking about what I've read on the internet. But a lot of people are saying that a lot of African Americans, a lot of the chatter that I'm seeing on the internet is that the only people who are worried about Kanye West taking black votes are white people. And the stories that are written about this, possibility happening is by white people. I personally don't feel like there's going to be troves of African Americans voting for Kanye West. Will any African American vote for Kanye West? I can't say that. I mean, there could be people from all various different groups. If I was a betting person, I would say that he's not going to affect the votes going towards Joe Biden. Although he says that that's what he's trying to do. I think that was the latest. There was a Forbes magazine article a couple days ago. I think was also written by, I think it was a white reporter, about how Kanye West is saying that, yeah, that's obviously his intention, to take away the votes from Biden. But you know what? I didn't want to make predictions because I thought Donald Trump wouldn't win either. But I just don't think that there's like troves of African Americans just from anecdotally. Nobody thinks that Kanye West is going to be fit for presidency. I think Chance the Rapper 2 weeks ago tweeted something about how his friend Kanye is, just as qualified as Joe Biden, or something about, endorsing him. And everybody just went after Chance the Rapper. And a large amount of these people who were speaking out against Chance the Rapper's endorsement of Kanye were young African Americans.
Yeah, I actually think that if Kanye West is on the ballot in Wisconsin, he may end up being a source for people who just are disenchanted in general.
Yeah.
Just a protest vote, just a protest vote. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying people aren't going to do it because they're just, there might be people who are just, mad at Joe Biden and they kind of feel like, why do I have to vote for that guy? And this is a protest vote. Yeah, I could definitely see people voting for him as a protest vote because they're just dissatisfied with both parties. But do I think there's going to be like tons of people voting for Kanye West? I don't know. I didn't think tons of people are going to vote for Donald Trump either. So I'm not the political pundit.
Well, we'll see.
I can make mistakes.
In 2016, Gary Johnson, who was running as a libertarian, was a very important aide to Donald Trump. He got the Tribune's endorsement, and he picked up enough votes in Michigan that helped Donald Trump, you could say, defeat Hillary Clinton. So I'll be really curious to see if the Tribune endorses Kanye West, if they can't bring themselves to endorse either candidate, Trump or Joe Biden. Will they turn around and just repeat, yeah, we're going to go for the third party candidate, the birthday party candidate, Kanye West?
I do remember that. I do think if the Tribune endorses Kanye West, they will be making headlines across the world.
I could make an argument that Kanye West has more credibility as a presidential candidate than Gary Johnson. I will not make that argument right now, but I could make that argument. So go ahead, Tribune, knock yourself out.
That's your next column, I think.
Yeah.
Kanye West.
No, I may get around to writing about Kanye West. I basically agree with you. I don't think he's going to be as destructive to Joe Biden as many reporters are saying, but everyone's so nervous right now.
Yeah.
Rummana, everybody's looking for that edge, and obviously those Republican strategists think he's in it work to their advantage, or they wouldn't be, trying to get him on the ballot. So
yeah, that is true. That's a good point.
There's a reason they're right now in Wisconsin trying to get him on the ballot. All right, today's Sun-Times had two essays back to back on the op-ed section, one by a woman who gets a lot of talk in our show, Mona Sharon. I always butcher her name, and then you always correct me.
Well, I don't know. I think it's Sharon. It could be wrong.
Okay, and SE Cup. Now, I have a couple thoughts on this, and then I'll turn it over to you. One, they're weighing in on who Joe Biden should take. And I've mentioned this in passing a little bit. Both Mona Sharon and SE Cup are conservatives. And to their credit, they're basically Republicans, but to their credit, in my humble opinion, they've been unafraid to criticize Donald Trump and divorce themselves from Donald Trump and say that they cannot possibly support Donald Trump because he is just such an obnoxious, ugly human being. So he's a contemptible human being, and they will not endorse him. So I give Mona Sharin and S.C. Cupp a lot of credit for doing that. That said, here we are in the eve of Joe Biden's announcement as to who his vice presidential candidate is. You have two Republican women weighing in on the Sun-Times, which is my beloved bright one, and a Democratic newspaper in a Democratic city. I don't know. Could you find a Democratic woman to weigh in? Didn't Kelly Cassidy have an opinion or something? I'm just saying, would the Wall Street Journal do back-to-back essays as to who some Democrat wants Donald Trump to take as his nominee? That was my first reaction. But anyway, what was your first reaction when you saw these essays?
Well, I read both of them after you pointed it out to me. I think it's safe to say I'm not a longtime reader of either columnist. Usually point me towards their direction to read their column. But I thought I read both, and I started off with S.E. Cupp's column, and it was like going fine, and then it just seemed to veer off in this direction where I don't know if I vote for Joe Biden, but I really need to know who's vice president is. It's like everything hinges on that, and I thought that was a little weird. And then Mona Sharin kind of went off on another tangent where she basically said that Joe Biden basically dug himself into a grave by saying that he's going to choose a female vice president. And then she goes on to say about, she mentions how there's a lot of, obviously Joe Biden, we think that he's leaning towards an African-American candidate. And she said that there's no African-Americans, female candidates in that group that are fit to be president. And then I kind of thought to myself, first of all, the guy in the White House is not fit to be president. So, I think there are a lot of qualified African-American women that could be vice president. I thought that was a little weird. And then she talked about this one state rep who was had ties or was sympathetic to the Communist Party.
No, yeah, she was talking about Congresswoman Karen Bass, who had a dear friend who was a communist. And when Karen Bass eulogized her friend, she didn't mention that the friend, was a longtime member of the Communist Party, which, I'm with you. What a stretch. She's, well, go ahead.
I don't know. I don't like what people, she made it seem like, I don't know. Like I've mentioned to this on the show before, but I have an uncle in India who's like a staunch communist, and he's a very good person. So I grew up not really vilifying communists. So and I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with all the principles, but I don't think just because someone agrees is a communist or a socialist is that they're automatically like an insane person or like a extremist. And that's what I think she kind of called the Communist Party. So I thought that was a little bizarre. And then she said that she'd feel better with someone like Tammy Duckworth, which is fine. I'm not, she has a right to say that. But I just thought it veered off on this like tangent where she was basically saying that none of these African-American women that are on Joe Biden's short list are qualified. And I just think, just given that Donald Trump is president, it's just a bizarre thing to say. And like you said, give her and S.E. Cupp credit. They do, speak out against Trump, but it's like at this point, I'm more qualified than Donald Trump, I think. But
I agree with that 100%.
And so to say that these women who have Kamala Harris has been in office, I know Susan Rice, she's never held office, and that could be an argument as well, but Donald Trump never held an office either, so it's like people thought Barack Obama, the same people who voted for Donald Trump and praise him, they had issues with Barack Obama not being experienced enough. So it's just, I don't know. I just think that who he picks for vice president, yes, it's important and everybody's going to keep an eye on it, but I don't know at this point. I don't know if it should make or break who you're going to vote for.
Well, I'll read you the exact couple sentences that Mona Sharin wrote, which my eyes went up when eyebrows went up when I read it. Quote, "It's great to pick a woman for vice president, but less great if you first pledged to do so. The pledge telegraphs that you are not looking for the best person, but the best woman." And that really rubbed me the wrong way. That gets into like the affirmative action argument.
Exactly.
And it's always just rubs me the wrong way. He was just saying, no, I feel it's time to show a commitment to women, and I'm going to, break through the glass ceiling, and we're going to do it right. And
although we did have Geraldine Ferraro, wasn't she the vice presidential candidate in the 80s? So he didn't break the glass ceiling on that.
And who was the other? Can you name for 10 trivia points the other woman vice presidential candidate in your lifetime?
I should know this.
You
I don't know. I'm
Dennis is so eager. He knows it. He can
I'm drawing a blank. I know there's one, and I'm just drawing a blank.
I'll give you a hint. It was 12 years ago.
Oh. God.
How soon we forget. She's not a Democrat. Sarah Palin was a vice presidential candidate. She's like, oh, yeah, I took that out of my mind.
I'd like to forget that, but...
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Yeah, we forget that there were female vice presidential candidates before that. So Joe Biden's not necessarily breaking the glass ceiling, but there were so many. As much as I know you don't like the Clintons or you don't like Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, I think it's safe to say, I think most people will agree that she was more qualified.
Absolutely.
Bill Clinton. So yeah, I just feel like women have hit that glass ceiling in a lot of regards, and for her to act like, oh, it's always like I don't think necessarily cutting men out of the equation means that there's not qualified people in that group. That's what it makes it seem like. Well, by just saying he was going to pick a woman for vice president, he killed all the good.
And this is the part of SE Cup to underscore what you said that really lost me. SE Cup wrote this. Okay, one more time. SE Cup's a conservative columnist for the Sun-Times. They got two conservative columnists back to back telling who they think Joe Biden should select, which says a lot about where we are as a country. All right, here we go. SE Cup writes this. After nearly 4 years of Trump's chaos, incompetence, corruption, narcissism, nepotism, racism, authoritarianism, and nihilism, I'm very seriously considering voting for Joe Biden rather than write someone in as I did in 2016. Very seriously? After talking about narcissism, nepotism, racism, authority, you're only very seriously? I mean, how could Joe Biden be any worse than racist, corrupt, narcissistic, authoritarian?
I think it's one of those things where it's like, God, it took you 4 years to realize that that Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah, I just find it. People are always like, now I'm not going to vote for him. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like this one column that our Washington, D.C. columnist wrote, Lynn Sweet, about how this one guy didn't like the way Donald Trump was handling the coronavirus, and he was at the Republican National Convention, and he's like, this is why I'm not going to, and I'm like, that's what it took for you to realize that Donald Trump isn't necessarily the best presidential candidate. I don't know. I thought it was kind of clear from day one, but I don't know. What do I know? I guess
welcome
one thing I'm pretty open about.
I welcome that man's support. I read that column, and I welcome that man's support. But I just had a laugh when I saw SE Cup write that. And then she goes, if he picks the wrong vice presidential candidate, I still won't vote for him. I'm like, who could he possibly pick that would get you to vote for the authoritarian, racist? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know who could be worse than an authoritarian racist. But anyway, some Republicans are hard to convince.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I don't think anybody who was going to vote for Donald Trump said, well, I'm going to wait to see who he's going to select for vice president before I vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So you got a chance to read my column on Bill Clinton, where I said Democrats cut the cord. The man is just like is an embarrassment to our party and his embarrassment, I think, to the country, his behavior, his connections to Jeffrey Epstein, coming right after the Monica Lewinsky affair that he had. He couldn't control himself in the White House, put the country through hell with the impeachment, and then starts hanging around with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm like, Rummana, time for him to just recede. And this is not about Hillary. It's about Bill Clinton. You know what I'm saying? This is Bill's baggage. It's not Hillary Clinton's baggage. So that's my take. Do you think I was too hard on him? Or
no, I think you raised good points, and this is something that we discussed last week too a little. It's the thing that I think people just find him really likable, or his image. He kind of has this image where he's like a aw shucks kind of guy, and everybody's like, oh, he's so charismatic, and he's just Bubba. And that's the thing. It's like, I think people just give him a pass. And you're kind of like the whistleblower on the Ellen show, I kind of feel like. I don't know if you've been hearing about all the talk about the Ellen show. It's like Ellen has, Ellen DeGeneres has this reputation as being a nice person. I never watched the show. I figured she seemed like a really nice person. And, I've always seen clips of her interviews and people are like, oh, she's so nice. And then after the George Floyd protests, everybody started talking about, that she wasn't really she's really not a nice person, and that, the staff was mistreated. So you're kind of like, I think you're like the whistleblower in that case who brought out the first story about, the mistreatment of people on the show. So you're kind of bringing up the point that, Bill Clinton isn't all what he is cracked up to be. Although with the case of Bill Clinton is we have all these, allegations, or we have all, this news stories that have followed Bill Clinton all these years, but he's kind of been unscathed. He's been, not to say that he's totally been, he went through the impeachment hearings, but he's still able to come up again. Recently.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think I actually started thinking about this in 2016 when he gave the I don't think it was the nominating speech, but a speech on behalf of Hillary Clinton, and it was extolling her virtues.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And he had I kept thinking as he was giving the speech, he was talking about how he met her and fell in love with her, and they were partners, and she was so important to him in the White House and all sorts of initiatives. I would go, okay, everybody knows what you put Hillary Clinton through with the Monica Lewinsky affair. Everybody knows what you put the country through with that. Everybody knows you played into the Republicans' hands with that. Please address that now somehow or other. You know what I mean? Please deal with that. And Rummana, he didn't even talk about it. And that's when that's what I'm saying. You know what? This guy is too slick. And then, of course, when Donald Trump got in trouble for the Hollywood Access tape, what did Donald Trump do to get out of that? He brought a press conference about 6 or 7 women who had claimed that Bill Clinton had sexually harassed them, and that just totally undercut the Democrats' argument. So it's like, it's been brewing in me for a while. Like, it is time to cut the freaking cord. And if I don't believe the Democrats are not convening in Milwaukee. I really don't know what their plans are for the convention, but I certainly hope it does not include a speech from Bill Clinton. Oh God, I'll be going nuts again, Rummana.
Maybe they'll read your column and they.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's there. I mean, he's got to be there, right?
Well, nobody. I don't know if anybody's going to be there because there is no there. Yeah. Virtually, yeah. So I would just hope they don't. It's as time goes on, far bigger fan of Jimmy Carter than Bill Clinton. And of course, I think Jimmy Carter is ill, so he won't be giving a speech. All right, before we let you go, Rummana's recommendations. Do you have anything that you want to recommend to people?
No, I'm kind of stuck this week. I was thinking about different things that I could recommend, but I feel like I've kind of run out of movies and TV shows to watch, although I still have to watch Pose. So I am still keeping that in mind because I started a new book. It's on Malcolm X. It's kind of a biography on him, and it's really thick. So I started that, but I do try to break up my reading with like senseless shows, and I'm trying to think of something to watch in between. So maybe I'll have to watch Pose.
Is it the Manning Marable?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that'll keep you busy for a while. That's an excellent book. That Manning Marable spent, I want to say, like 30 years.
Yeah.
And then he died right after the book. He completed it. It was kind of a tragic thing. Manny Marable, a great historian, and it was his life's work to put together this opus on Malcolm X, and he died right after it came out. So,
I guess that's my recommendation, because I started it, and it was a New York Times bestseller, and it's called Malcolm X: A Life of Reinvention, and it's really good so far. It's very like dense, like, there's a lot, it's like 500, 600 pages, but I'm only 30 pages into it, but it's really good. I wanted to read everything about it since I read the preface, and it's very intriguing so far.
All right, very good, Rummana Hussain. Get back to the reading, and I thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate every Friday. Rummana Hussain, editor, columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times. Talk to you next week. Okay, Rummana?
Okay, take care, guys.
That's Rummana Hussain. D, got any updates before we head out that door?
Absolutely, I do. First off, I want to remind everybody one more time, download this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, new interviews for you to download, available at 5 a.m. at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. I'm talking to you, live streamers. Go download those. Live stream chat is just on and hopping today. Great job from everyone there. Thank you, as always, to them. We have another update on schools and their decision to keep or remove their police. They're going to be inside learning at home, but it's still something we need to talk about, right, Ben?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right.
Very important issue.
Let's do this here. All right. So I'm going to name the school. Ben, you tell us a little bit about the school, as you always do. And
sometimes I don't know, but let's go.
All right. Well, we never know until we go, so we'll do that, and then you pick whether they decided to remove or keep their police. All right. The following school is Hancock College Prep.
Oh, Hancock College Prep on the southwest side of Chicago. And it's one of those schools you have to take a test to get into. All right. Did they vote for? I would say they voted to keep the police.
All right. The following comes from Block Club Chicago, by the way. And let's see here. In West Elton, Hancock College Prep High School, with a 6-4 vote, voted to remove their police officers.
Remove the police officers. I could have made this. Okay. There's a pattern here. So it's Elton's southwest side, probably heavily Latino population. D, we have to notice a trend. Have Benito Juarez voted to remove its police? Northside Prep. It seems like there may be some correlation here. As I follow these trends. So 6-4, that's probably the closest vote that we've seen in any. Again, one more time, everybody, you don't get anything from the Board of Ed if you remove your police. You just get the police out of your building, but you don't. It's not like the Board of Ed says, okay, we're going to give you an allowance to compensate, for the money you're not spending on police. So it's just a decision strictly on whether you want that police presence in the building.
All right, so there's that. Hey, have you talked TIFs at all today, by the way?
Yeah, I have. I'm going to restrain myself. Got Tommy Tresser coming up in about an hour.
Oh, and speaking of high schools, we have one more update. Lane Tech High School, earlier in the week, they voted to get rid of their mascot, the Lane Tech Indians. They're no longer the Lane Tech Indians, but they said today that they will not begin the process to find a new mascot until the school year starts. Any ideas, possibly, of what they could have as their new mascot?
I'm going to leave that to the Lane Tech community. How about that, D?
All right. I got one, the Lane Tech Lakers. Let's go for it. We're by the lake, right?
Not bad. It's Western Avenue, so, it's 24 blocks from the lake. Not bad. The land, it's a little alliteration. God dang, this guy's good.
Right. Lane Tech Lakers. Who's with me?
I'm going to run it by one of my neighbors, teaches at Lane Tech. I'm going to run it by him, ask him what he thinks.
All right. And if they go with Lane Tech Lakers, we got to find a way to give me some money out of that. All right.
Okay. I'm with you on that, D.
I'm hurting. All right. So that's our show. Thanks again, everybody, for listening all this week. Download those Benny J bonus interviews. And remember, not this coming up week, but the week after, we're going to be taking a little break again.
Yes, much deserved. I want to thank Rummana Hussain for coming on as she does, and remind everybody we got Tommy Tresser coming up. We're dropping him next week, and the Heartland Mamas, can't forget them. We're going to be interviewing them as well. Be dropping that next week. I want to thank the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, without whom this show would be possible. And as the Heartland Mamas will tell you, Back home in Alton, they call him Dr. D. Give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash. Have a good weekend, everyone.
He didn't come to my inauguration. He didn't come to my State of the Union speeches. And that's okay. That's his right. Again, nobody has done more for black Americans than I have.
I understand.
He should have come. But I think he made a big mistake.
But taking your relationship with him out of it, do you find his story impressive, what he's done for this country?
He was a person that devoted a lot of energy and a lot of heart to civil rights, but there were many others also.
Mr. Vice President, your opponent in this election, President Trump, has made your mental state a campaign topic. And when asked in June if you'd been tested for cognitive decline, you've responded that you're constantly tested in effect because you're in situations like this on the campaign trail. But please clarify specifically, have you taken a cognitive test?
No, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man.